Hi everyone. Okay, so the next section is markup. So it's just looking at the same information that we were looking at with list price and net price, but just a little bit differently. Okay? So where we were looking at net price, we know that's how much it cost us to buy it. So now looking at markup, we know C is the cost, and we need to mark it up for our selling price to the next level up, whether it's the distributor, the wholesaler, or ultimately the customer. We need to add a markup to our cost to come up with our selling price. Okay? Because we can't sell it for the same price as it cost us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in business. We need to be able to cover all of our expenses. So if you remember back to accounting, on our income statement, we've got revenue minus expenses equals net income. So we need to cover all of our expenses, and we want a profit. So that net income, we need income at the end, otherwise we won't be in business. So when we're looking at the M, or the markup, the profit that we're making, it's operating expenses plus operating profit. Okay, so all of our expenses and our profit is what we need to mark it up by. And we need to take that markup, add it to how much it actually cost us to buy it or to make it, to come up with our selling price to the next level up. Okay. So let's have a look. So we have S is our selling price, C is our cost, M is our markup, and our markup is made up of E, which is our operating expenses, and P, our profit. So our markup is equal to E, our expenses, plus our profit. So then, to come up with our selling price, it is the cost plus the markup, or are the expenses and the profit. So S equals C plus E plus P. Selling price equals cost plus expenses plus profit. Okay, so merchandisers prefer to think of markup in terms of percentages again, okay? So the percentage markup. So they either look at it as the rate of markup based on the cost, or the rate of markup based on the selling price. Okay, so as you can see, the markup is the numerator in both of these equations, but the denominator is either based on the cost or based on the selling price. Okay. So we have an example here. Coastal Marine is importing a new line of inflatable boats at a unit cost of $18.60. Coastal estimates that the operating expenses per unit will be 30% of cost. Okay, so we can figure out what our operating expenses are because they're 30% of the cost. What should the markup and selling price be if Coastal's desired operating profit, so there's your P, is 25% of cost? Okay, so we know that the selling price is equal to cost plus expenses plus profit. They've given us the information here to be able to figure out what our expenses are, which are 30% of cost, and we know what our profit is going to be because it's 25% of cost. Okay, so let's give it a shot. So for A, okay, so we have markup, which is equal to E plus P. So we know E, our operating expenses, is 30% of cost, so 0.3 times 1860. And we know that our profit is 25% of cost, which is 0.25 times 1860. Okay, and that gives us $1,023. So our M, the markup, is 1,023. Okay, so let's go back to the question. What should the markup and selling price be? So we know what the markup is. Let's look at the selling price. So we know our selling price is the cost, which is the 1860, plus the markup, which is the 1,023, is going to give us our selling price for 2,883. Okay. B, what are Coastal's rate of markup on cost and rate of markup on selling price? Okay, so rate of markup on cost, markup on cost. There's your formula, M divided by C. And rate of markup on selling price. So there's your other one, M divided by selling price. So we've got our markup, which is 1,023, divided by cost, which is 1860, is 55%. So our rate of markup on cost is 55%. The next one, which is markup over selling price, 1,023 divided by our selling price of 2,883 is 35.5%. Okay. Product Z has a unit cost of $245. If the retailer wants 30% markup on selling price, what is dollar amount of markup and what is selling price? See if you can figure this one out. Pause the video for a couple of minutes and give that one a try. Okay, so let's go through it. So we know that markup on selling price, we have M divided by S equals 100, gives us 30%. Okay? Therefore, M is our 30% of S. So we're taking this equation here, okay, we're changing it to 0.3, and then we've got M divided by S equals 0.3. We want to manipulate the equation. How do we move the S over to the other side? Well, we multiply both sides of the equation by S, right? Remember back to our review of algebra. So therefore, the equation then becomes M equals 0.3 S, because we've taken this S, got rid of it by multiplying this side by S, and then multiplying this side by S. So that would leave us 0.3 S. Okay, so M equals 0.3, the selling price. So now we want to figure out what the selling price is. So the selling price is the cost plus the markup. Well, we know what the cost is. We know the cost is $245, and we know that the markup is 0.3 S. So again, we're going to be looking at manipulating the equation, just like we went over in the review unit. We have an S on the left side, and we have a partial S on the right side. So we need to move that 0.3 S over to the other side. How do we get rid of it? We do the same thing to both sides of the equation. We want to subtract 0.3 S from the right side, so therefore we want to subtract 0.3 S from the left side. Okay, so now we've got S minus 0.3 S equals 245. Let's consolidate our S's. S minus 0.3 S gives us 0.7 S equals 245. Now we want to get rid of the 0.7. Well, how do we get rid of the 0.7? We divide both sides by 0.7. So by dividing both sides by 0.7, that leaves us S on the left-hand side because it cancels out. And then we have 245 divided by 0.7 on the right side. So S equals 245 divided by 0.7 gives us a selling price of $3.50. So therefore we have solved the selling price. Now, what is dollar amount of markup? We haven't figured that part out yet, okay? So always go back to the question. Have we solved everything? Well, we know what the selling price is. We know what the cost is. So therefore we can figure out what the markup is. Markup equals our selling price minus our cost, right? It's the same as this equation here, only we've changed it and put the C on the other side. And the way we move the C over to the other side is by subtracting C from both sides. So therefore we have M, the markup, equals selling minus cost. Okay? So therefore we have a selling price of $3.50, which we solved here, minus cost of $2.45 gives us a markup of $105. Okay, I'm going to end the video here. The next one will be based on marking down. So again, using percentages to mark down the cost of a product. Thanks, everyone.